We also have Harshana Suriyapperuma, member of NPP Economic Council. Harshana Suriyapperuma, member of the NPP Economic Council. Harshana, the tie-up is between the Economic Council of the SJB right now because there was an open invitation for the Economic Council of the NPP to come on board with the SJB and discuss the proposals and the policy direction of the two political parties in question. Why didn't it happen?
First of all, thank you very much for having me in the session. And I would like to say, wish you all the very best for people who are looking forward for the Urdu and people who are celebrating Eid today, the Muslim Brotherhood. To start approaching the question, what is really important is for people to understand whether is it what is printed on paper, on shiny paper in black and white, or is it the characters who are going to deliver them. In the past, we have seen time again and again, people were presented with rosy proposals, pictures, paradises, but whatever that was delivered is exactly the opposite. So what is important is in relation to the debate that is the topic that is hyped by the media, is to understand what is the most important thing of the hour. Is it to understand what is written on paper by people who have brought this country into this mega mess, or is it to look at different options that are available for people? So it is to continue that dialogue with people, to create awareness among people as to what NPP is going to do about, instead of talking or debating with people who have brought the country into this mess, the current status we are in. In the past, they were asking votes from people to say that the country will be taken to a particular standard. This is the type of living they are going to promise. They were promised in motor vehicle factories to be installed in Sri Lanka or commenced in Sri Lanka. They were promised of free Wi-Fi to people. So people have gone through so much of undelivered promises. So it is more than talking. As far as people are concerned, people are fed up. It's not just a question of fighting for it, but people are just fed up. They have had enough with talking. Now, what people are looking for is delivery. Let me come to the point. So in terms of delivery, what matters is not the people who created the mess to start discussing with the NPP as to why we are here and how are we going to go out of it. If there's a requirement to do so, we NPP will take that one. And as we have publicly, during a formal press conference, we have announced that one.
So, Harshana, so you are of the opinion that a debate between the two economic councils are not an imperative or a prerequisite at this point of time for people to understand what you all have in mind and put it to the table?
It is very important for people to understand what are the policies of each of the parties.
So when you say it's important to understand the policies of the party, SJB is going to be represented, if there is a debate, hypothetically, by Iran Wickramaratne, Kabir Hashim and Harsh De Silva. From the NPP, who would be
party would
debating at that forum?
Sure. NPP would nominate suitable candidates to come up and discuss the matters. But as of now, as we have seen in the media and on the printed media as well, NPP has requested the election that is to be happen is the presidential election. So what is important is for people, if at all, to understand what are the views of or the policies that the party leaders are looking forward. If that is not happening, if the other party who has asked for the debate is not willing to come forward to do that one, then we have again expressed that our willingness to take part.
Just to understand, so it's not Suril Handunetti and Dr. Anil Jayant who are going to be represented at this debate in question?
Once again, it's more about people who can present the policies for better understanding of people. NPP will nominate the people to come and discuss
that. Why I'm asking you this question, Harshana, the reason behind the allegation leveled by the opposition parties in parliament is the fact that you all have the good rhetoric in place. You all have, you all say this should be a protest vote. They have tested and tried the political parties. But when we talk about the people who are going to steer that agenda forward, There is absolutely no one. You're talking about around 3 or 4 people. You used to talk about Andrakumar Dissanayake. You're talking about Vijay Herath. You're talking about Harshana Surya. You're talking about Sunil Handuneti. You're talking about Bimal Ratnayake. You're talking about Lal Kant. Tell me someone else apart from these people who can steer the NPP.
So this question was asked numerous times from Andrakumar Dissanayake. I'm sure people of the country would have watched these programs again and again and again. What is represented in the parliament out of the 225 members that people are aware, majority of them have served in either of the party, and they are saddled with allegations relating to corruption. Whereas NPP, they have a team working with them. Only thing is, public have not seen them in the past.
Because we saw similar sentiments and we saw a similar situation, Harshana, in 2019 also. I don't know whether you recollect, there was an organization called Vietmag. And it's no public secret, everyone knows about it. And we saw several names, and look what happened to the country several years down the line. We were declared a bankrupt nation. We are still trying to come out on top as far as the economy is concerned. And are we going to vote individuals who you say are professionals to steer the country? It's a big question mark, isn't it?
For some, it may be the case, I'm pretty sure, because of what happened to the country during the last election with the involvement of Vietmag. I've explained in the past as well in similar programs. Vietmag has been an initiative that is supporting the political party, not in the core of the political party. Whereas in NPP, the people who have come to the front of it are in the core of it. They are not a peripheral association associated with the NPP. So that's a contrasting difference, which we have explained many, many times in the past. So those professionals are placed in respective areas. If you take the healthcare sector, if you take the education sector, if you take the finance sector, if you take the social welfare, whatnot, you name it, there are teams and individuals who have the expertise without the bad reputation relating to misconduct and corruption, which is a contrasting difference compared to the ones currently in the parliament. They have each and every one, almost except for few good politicians that are out there, are saddled with allegations of
Thank
corruption.
you very much. Thank you very much, Harshana Suriyapperuma, member of NPP Economic Council. We, of course, have a lot of questions for you as we go along, Harshana.
So I would start with Harshana. I have two questions, Harshana. One is, your major party JVP within the NPP is perceived as, critically analyzing things, critically, coming up with, some debates about the government ruling party. But when it comes to implementation, they basically find difficulties, right? For instance, like, see, your leader came up with these files, files about corrupt people, but still nothing has been done, right? I don't know, whether it has been produced to the courts, whether legal action has been pursued. Nothing has been done. I mean, what is the assurance you can give to the public that when you come to the power, when NPP come to the power, that you will implement in a different way, but you will make sure that the implementation process will be success?
Shihar, can I add to that?
Sure.
Just this week, we see a story coming out of Nigeria, which is, it has a certain reputation, but we have this story that the Nigerian Minister of Poverty was suspended and $24 million was discovered in 50 bank accounts that she had. This is a sitting minister. Now, just a few months ago, we had the Singaporean Minister of Transport arrested and charged for corruption. So we see other countries which are taking action against sitting ministers. But in Sri Lanka, forget about sitting ministers, even cabinet ministers of past governments are getting away scot-free. Now, when I say getting away scot-free, the opposition always comes up with files and files and files. But then when they get into government, the files disappear, nothing more is heard, and those people who were in government are going on their merry way. Now, what will happen, considering that your leader keeps bringing these big sheafs of files, what will happen or would happen if your party forms a government? How many ministers of this government and former governments would be arrested and prosecuted?
Very interesting question. I suppose that's the same question people are asking also. Because when people are in opposition, they speak a lot about how they will bring justice and governance into the country. We could see in the 2015 era, the president and the person who became the president and the person who became the prime minister and the deputy ministers, they got together and robbed the central bank. The prime minister and the deputy ministers, they were trying to protect, safeguard the people who robbed the central bank through a footnote mafia. The country knows about these people. While court sessions were going on, they were on call with these perpetrators who committed the crime. And these are the very people now trying to portray themselves as saints who are going to safeguard people and resurrect the country again. The very people who spoke about Volkswagen factories in Sri Lanka, they are the very people who misled the people and misguided the people to do these things. But as you said, NPP, the parliamentarians, we had only 3 in the current parliament. The 3 of them showed the strength of collective 225 in terms of highlighting some of the issues. Who broke out the news of the central bank robbery? It is by NPP. Who broke out the news relating to the sugar scandal? It is by NPP. Who broke out the news relating to the onions and some of the essential commodities scams? So it is by NPP. So the question is, it is not the number out there. Some of these things, I'm sure other politicians would have contributed.
You stand corrected when you say that it was the NPP who revealed the central bank bond controversy. It was not the NPP that did that. It was News First that did that, because on the 28th of February, we were the first people to expose it. I was the director of news at that time. So I know.
Let me continue.
Probably in Parliament, you all would have spoken about it.
That's what we are. That's what we are. So we are talking of the conduct of politicians here.
The exposes were technically done by whistleblowers, outside the Parliament.
No, prior to any news channel breaking it out, we know the primary dealers who got involved. Then, if we go to one step ahead, the primary dealers who were involved in the sessions were the first whistleblowers out there, not any of the news media. So, but if you look at it, is them who reported
but can we, if you all come into government,
yes,
would we see proper arrests?
That's what I'm coming in to answer the question.
I mean, investigations we have had galore, and the public knows who's done what. And you all have these huge files.
Niresh, with your permission, I just want to add to that. How many files do you all have? Tell me, Willie.
So it's not a question of how many files,
how many cases
much of
you have,
corruption that the country has gone. It's not a number of files that we need to boil down to. We need not to get into that level of petty details.
No. 10, 15,
what we
20,
need,
how
we
many
need
files?
to be realistic. Let's look at what Auditor General has said.
But the problem is, Harshana,
yes,
Niresh's question was very simple. It's easy to have files, but difficult to take action. Tell me one instance after those files were tabled by Anukumar Disanayaka and Harshana Nanayakar, who was your Politburo member from the NPP. How much of actions have you all taken from that day to today? Sure. If you all have not taken any action from that day to today, what assurance would the people have that you all will take action after being elected to power?
Correct. So the reason why we are unable to take it to the end of the journey relating to action is the lack of power in the parliament, the representation in the parliament. But within the 3 members, we are trying to do our best. That is not enough by no means.
No, but so parliament is not court.
No, the reason is we need to get some of the details that are required to take it to the next level. Some of these details are held by government officials, in the clutches of the political authorities at the moment, unfortunately, whether we like it
So
or not.
indirectly, Harshana, you are saying that the judiciary is not independent. Is it what
you're trying to interpret
saying
something that is completely that I didn't refer to, which is unfortunate.
Because
but the reality is,
look,
let me
now
try
if
to...
you are saying that you need the parliament majority to,
No, not parliament majority.
That's what you
not
said.
parliament. No, not the majority of the parliament. I was
You
saying...
said with 3 members you can't do it.
Yes. So when the system, that is the parliamentary system that is out there, one way is to take action individually by going to courts and seek justice on some of these matters.
So why don't they give those files to
SJB?
SJB? Because now SJB has around 50 members in parliament.
So what we need to look at is the system in place. If individual members of the public or parliamentarians are expected to seek the refuge of the judiciary to get some of these things done, I think that's not a sustainable approach. What is required is to have a system in place, approved through parliaments, through legislation, that there is a mechanism when corruption is identified, reported with evidence, those systems should take precedence, and the system should start proceeding until the finality of those matters. People should either be stepping down from those positions or an alternative mechanism should be made. Whereas in the current system, the people who are involved in crime and corruption are allowed the privileges of parliament, and it's not taking through that system. That's what I'm trying to point out.
So you all don't want to give these files to the SJB who has around...
Are they undermining the judiciary? I want to ask
exactly,
you, are you undermining the judiciary by your statement?
Once again, you have not understood the words that I'm using. It's unfortunate. The reason that I'm saying is, if individual citizens of the country is expected to go to court seeking for refuge, that's an unfortunate situation. Whereas the parliament and the system that people have appointed, and it's a representative system that we have here, the system should take precedence and start taking action. Auditor General has reported since 2015, 8 trillion rupees were taken by government as project loans, of which only 2 trillion is reported on the books. So these people who were in power, who are in power, are answerable to the public of the country. So where is the system?
Let me just take this question for Harshana. University undergraduates are brought out to protest every day, while all the JP leaders have their children in universities overseas. I don't have information on that. This is just a question. It's not that is not that hypocritical. The undergraduates here should be able to finish their studies in 4 years and be gainfully employed instead.
Sure. So once again, the students who are protesting...
Now, are there any JP leaders' children at universities overseas?
Has the person who raised the question given the details about them, or do you have the factual details about them?
They've just asked. That's what I'm asking.
So it is not fair, I'm sure, in the open media to make such allegations or statements without having facts relating to them, number one.
This is a good question. That's what we can't...
So instead of getting into the personal lives of whether the politicians' children are studying overseas or not, I'll get into the substance of the matter.
That's a serious question.
If you ask about my children, I'll be able to answer. But if you ask about somebody else's children, I may not be able to answer.
Leadership of the JVP, you should be able to answer.
Of course. So that's what I'm saying. Children, whether they are studying
in foreign universities.
Whether children are studying in foreign universities or local universities is not the crux of the matter, I would say. This is my response to your question. What is really important is why these universities,
overseas universities.
Why these students are coming into roads is because of the pressure that they are going through in the education system.
It's a bit sad, because how.
So it is in their free will. Some of these students are coming on to. If there are protests, it is through the free will of these youth who are above 18 years of age, who have the right to vote when there is an election. So they have the conscience, they have the understanding, and they are among the best of the country in terms of education to make a judgment and decision. So if somebody is of the view, someone can parade them towards a course, I think that undermines it is understatement for their intellectual capacity of the university students. It is not the case. So the university students are coming onto the roads because of real issues, real threats that they have identified, not because of the politicians have identified. By talking here in the media, we won't be able to rally students like that. If students are convinced there is merit on those matters, definitely they will start. They might start protest relating to those issues.
I have the same conclusion to what I told Bharat. Let the people decide.
For sure.
Ideologies have to match at the end of the day with those political parties. So right now, are there any political parties which the ideologies of the United Republic of France?
I beg to differ. In Sri Lanka, politics makes very strange bedfellows. So various ideologies which you never thought would mix.
Very well.
Madhuri,
it does happen.
Very true. Just to add a comment, the people who took the alliance that you just referred to in 2015, they took these individuals that you just named in person to courts and put them behind bars also, at least for a shorter period of time. But shamelessly, unfortunately, now 5 years down the line, they are making alliances because of political reasons.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. I'm getting a lot of comments, views on the number 07665655353, but I'm trying my best not to pose them as questions to our viewers, but to take progressive questions. So we are having a constructive dialogue, and whatever questions that are directed should be constructive, so we can take it as a way forward for the country. So Harshana, can you explain a little bit what is the NPP and what is the JVP?
So it's once again an alliance with 22 different parties and associations in it, and JVP is one of the party. So that's a simple sort of an answer. However, there are, in terms of the number, the contribution, no matter whether it's a bigger player in the alliance or it's a small player in the alliance, what really matters is the merit and the sense that it makes to the future of Sri Lanka.
What's the ideology of the NPP?
So, in terms of economy, okay. So instead of having a name board to say whether it is a democratic scenario, it's a socialistic scenario, it is to look at the content of it. Let the name be, let people give a better name that based on the outcome that we are going to deliver. Obviously, it will have a tagline perhaps when it comes to the policy papers that's coming out. But it's about the content in it. How we have looked at the issues, pressing issues of people. What are the solutions that we are proposing to it? One angle. In terms of the debt management, IMF scenario, renegotiations, etc., what are our approaches, etc. It's a long conversation. If you have time, I can go into. In terms of revenue management, what are the proposals that we come up? And we have had discussions with IMF. They clearly said what they want is to increase revenue, but they have not specified the means of doing so. Whereas the government is going in a spree of privatization and selling of national assets that this country has. Because they
are you qualified to speak on behalf of the Economic Council of the NPP?
Yes, I am.
Right, very good. So let me pose some questions to you.
Sure,
you
please.
say that you all are going to increase revenue.
Yes, please.
How do you all intend to do that while not privatizing, while not selling state assets, and reducing the VAT and pay tax?
Sure. So increase of revenue is a combination.
I want in numbers, if you don't mind, please.
So it may be a little premature to give some numbers per se, but I'll give some context that will lead to numbers when we finalize those. For example, at the moment, we collect taxes from a limited number of taxpayers. On 5th of April, there's a media article, 1 trillion rupees due to the inland revenue has not been paid. It was in the print media. Tax evaded just for 2023 alone. So if you, one way is to increase the revenue is collecting of tax that are being evaded. Second one, increasing the taxpayer base. Many of VAT that is collected, much of the VAT that is being collected at the moment, numbers are getting finalized, I suppose, are not reaching the treasury. that number is a very high number based on the people who are in the know that they are saying. So revenue is being collected, but it is not reaching the treasury. By addressing that issue, a significant proportion of revenue is to come into the treasury. Third element, many who are supposed to get into the tax net has not got into the tax net because of the informal economy that we have. So it's not a one-day overnight scenario to make that shift from the informal economy to the formal economy.
No.
So it's
my question was I'm asking you, Harshana, because of
I was
time
on the
constraints.
third reason on increasing revenue, but you can go ahead.
Yeah. So tell me, if you're talking about that's what I want to know.
Yes.
How do you increase revenue?
Yeah, so the third one is increasing the tax base by bringing some of the informal players in the economy into the formal level. Fourth approach is by increasing the production base. Currently, there are only few players who are involved in the production. Country relies heavily on importation. That puts excessive pressure on our balance of payments and in terms of our dollar values as well.
Yeah, Harsha,
So the fourth one is the increasing of production base.
So why I want, what is the policy of the NPP with regard to privatization and selling of state businesses?
So that's a separate part. First one you asked about the increasing revenue. So I gave four reasons.
Tell me this, will you?
Yeah, now it's the second part on the relating to the privatization and of state-owned enterprises. So state-owned enterprises will be looked at in three different angles. One is the enterprises that should be...
Now, do you all believe that state-owned enterprises have to be sold and the government should not be in business?
It's not a one yes or no answer, because you can't accept one, rather apply one answer across the platform on institutions. Because there are strategically important institutions out there in that lot, the basket that we are talking about.
Let's say Sri Lankan Airlines, for an example.
Sri Lankan Airlines, we have to look at as part of our economic policy. The tourism of the country is identified as a key driver of the economy.
That's not a good enough answer.
So I'm still continuing in the answer if you have the patience to allow me to complete.
I have the patience.
Yeah. So tourism is a key driver of the Sri Lankan economy. So if tourism is to be driven in the direction that we want, the Sri Lanka wants in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, we should have a key mandate to how to control the traffic from overseas countries bringing tourists into Sri Lanka, which destinations we are going to connect irrespective of the level of connections that we are having, etc. So for those matters, we need some of these strategic institutions. We prefer at least some of these strategic institutions be within the control of the government. Same applies to Sri Lanka Telecom, because it's not as an institution that sells telephones or communication. It is about the economic policy that we have prepared for the country. The future of Sri Lanka is related, the growth of Sri Lanka is related to the digitization of this nation.
So
that cannot be done because...
Within 5 years, if you're looking at making Sri Lankan Airlines profitable, do you know how much of money Sri Lankan Airlines losing or bleeding year on year?
Do you know whether Sri Lankan Airlines is having a cash operational profit as of now?
Operational profit, because a bit the top, but I'm asking you, 163.58 billion rupees is the loss annually of Sri Lankan Airlines. How are you going to do tourism and start paying off this? That's my simple question.
In addition, Harshana, many very large countries like the United States don't have national carriers. They don't need to, because the private sector airlines and foreign airlines fill the gap, because it's a market. It's a market. And there are enough and more foreign airlines which would jump in to the Sri Lankan market. And also there are local players as well.
You're saying, my question.
May I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
So I don't think United States is a good comparison to an island nation who's relying on tourism to a great extent. I don't think that is a good comparison. We need to look at what we have to offer.
Yeah, Sri Lankan Airlines recently, the cabinet decided to spend $725,000 US dollars to get several aircrafts on lease basis. If you all were in power, would you all do it or not?
We will do it, but not at that price. because the market price for wet leases at the moment is much, much lower. So unfortunately the government, so these are the operational issues, that's why it is showing an operational profit, but unfortunately the organization is unable to report a profit. That's why Treasury has to bail out at one point at the beginning of the year by 1 billion and recently another 500 millions to bail out, to absorb some of the debts. So part of the work is being done, which is a good thing perhaps. But reviving of Sri Lankan Airlines has two aspects. One is taking away the issues that corruption has created in it, inefficiency has created it in it, but the operational staff is doing a admirable, commendable job. That's why the organization is generating operating.
You all don't want to even go against the employees also, no?
So why should anyone go against in any organization's employees if they are doing a good job?
Golden handshake?
Sorry?
Because right now Sri Lankan Airlines is overstaffed. Will you all give a golden handshake and get rid of those people by taking a hard decision?
So that's a good approach. So those are being considered as part of the revival.
There are 2 million people in the state sector working right now. Would you give a golden handshake to them and say, you all will have to find alternative jobs? Would you all do it? Yes or no? I don't think
some of the, unfortunately, some of these
state sector.
Unfortunately, some of these issues don't have a black and white yes or no answer, but those will be considered as part of the proposals for options.
So
it is overstaffed for sure.
So whoever is going to vote for you has to take that also into account.
So better to wait for the policy proposals to come, but those are options that we are looking at. So, as I said, some of the institutions will be kept with the government, considered, some of the institutions will be jointly managed, and some of the institutions, if it is too commercial and too less important for the government to get involved, those will be considered to be given out.
When we get economists on Face the Nation, Harshana, just to give you a bit of clarity, all of them are of the opinion that the government should not be doing business. That is not their role. So whether or not handling Sri Lanka Telecom, or whether or not handling Sri Lankan Insurance, or whether it's Sri Lankan Airlines or CEB, they should not be involved in doing that business. So that's the opinion of the expert economists. But then you are also a member of the NPP. You are entitled for your own view.
So views can be quite different.
Absolutely.
But so, one of the reasons that we have had this so-called 76 years of disaster is that government has been
involved in business,
and very badly so.
And using these
there are many successful case examples in many of the countries. If you look at Korea, some of the institutions are still under the government.
Yes, but that's Korea.
Countries.
I'm talking in Sri Lanka.
Why it was
Korea
possible,
did not go bankrupt.
Why it was different is because of the people who ran the country. It is same as who ran the country for 75 years in Sri Lanka. That makes the difference. That's why NPP is saying we will be the solution for the future.
Those politicians don't recruit people, their own supporters to the public institutions, right?
You're very correct. That's why when NPP was in looking after some of the ministries, we did not, NPP leaders who were tending to those affairs that time, did not recruit their connected parties into those institutions.
Let me ask this, Harshana. Now, when it comes to both economic and foreign policy, NPP is a bit vague, right? Because they are still trying to come up with strong foreign and economic policies. Can you comment on that?
Sure. So it may be your opinion that it is vague, but in our mind it's very clear as to what we are going to do.
In the vague, like everybody, all the NPP members are not in the same page. If I ask you one question, you will give me one answer, and if I ask the same question from another colleague of your economic council, they will give you another answer. So it shows that everybody is not on the same page.
May I respond to that?
One classic example. Yes. One classic example. When we asked Harshana, who's in the Politburo of the NPP, not you, the other Harshana Anakara, we asked him who is going to be the Prime Minister candidate of the NPP. He said, it's Harshana Suriyapperuma. We had Chaturanga Singh on the show a couple of weeks ago when we asked him, so Harshana Suriyapperuma has been appointed as the Prime Minister candidate. He said, no, nothing has been done. So, case in point, So.
May I respond to that one? So, depends on the person to whom you are directing the question and depending on the area that he is specializing in. For example, if you ask me something related to the legal policies, what we are going to adopt in terms of legal reforms going to be in future. I may not be the best person to answer that question, but I may give an answer that may be not in the correct direction, or I may say, I'm not aware. Whereas, similarly, if you ask the question relating to economics, it will be good to ask, direct that question to a member of the Economic Council to get the correct answer, the correct thinking at that point. Because it is a fluid thing, obviously, because the elections are not called.
So Harshana,
many things can happen from now
tell us
to
some
then.
names. If you all are getting 113 members in Parliament at the next general election and form a government, you all are very optimistic to get at least 60 to 70%, right, of the votes.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So let's say that is 113 members of Parliament. If I tell you to name 25 people from the NPP who will take up key ministerial positions in your cabinet, can you name 25?
Sure.
You don't have to think of leadership or whatever it is, but I'm just asking, can you name 25 people? Because right now we all are aware it's not going to be individuals who are going to take this country forward.
Correct.
It's definitely going to be a team of experts who will have to take this country forward. So my question is, if you are told to name 25 people on this very show as to who will be appointed as cabinet ministers in your government, who would those 25 ministers be?
Sure. So I think it's fair to direct this question to the leader of the party, and it was directed to him by international media, and he named the individuals. They were asking for the 20 names to say so, and he provided the names as well. If you ask from myself, I'm from the financial side of it, I attend to the economic side of it. So there are individuals that are working closely on that front. I will be able to identify some of the key contributors into that initiative. For example, Professor Anil Jayanta is there, Professor Sita is there, myself I'm there. Likewise, there's the list of names. But
so all of you are going to be appointed to the cabinet?
Unfortunately not. You're misinterpreting. We'll be happy if we can have large cabinets. NPP's vision is not to have large cabinets.
How many ministers?
I think those will be finalized, but it will be kept to the minimum.
No, there's a lot to be finalized, not just from the NPP, but from many of the parties. And, we have been asking these questions for several months now.
But the NPP has a lot of finalizations to be done.
Yes, but however, time is of the essence because the presidential election is expected somewhere around September.
Because the president is opening up highways that are flyovers that are not even completed. So that sends a
very
strong
strange.
signal.
Yes, the same press release said that he opened the flyovers, but they'd be completed in September.
But let me put it this way: what I meant by finalizing is prior to going into public, there are things that we need to fine tune on those.
Harshana Suriyapperuma, member of the NPP Economic Council.
So it's key to focus on implementation. There are more and enough policies in the country. So NPP would be focusing more about implementation of some of the existing good policies and implementing some of the new policies that are coming up, exploring some of the options, reviewing our existing trade agreements, whether it is bilateral or multilateral, getting into new free trade agreements that are beneficial to the country, looking at ways to expand the manufacturing economy, which will contribute to generate more revenue, the taxation income, more employment, and then strengthen our export sector, strengthen our import substitution sector, and address many of the issues that the Sri Lanka is currently facing through digitization, get youth and youngsters, capable individuals, competent individuals connected to the governance structure of the country. So that's where the digitization initiative, a lot of groundwork we have done at the moment in terms of preparations. So this will be taken to the next level. It's about implementation of those initiatives, and I'm sure people would give us the mandate to implement instead of the current government who's acting without a mandate, trying to privatize property belonging to the assets belonging to the people. That's our way forward.
Thank you very much, Harshana.